Hey friends, Nas here. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Missing Person Cases, where we briefly dive into unsolved disappearances that may be lacking exposure in the public eye, with the hopes of possibly reaching the right eyes and ears to bring closure to these sad and unfortunate cases. Today, I'm bringing you episode 6 of Missing Person Cases. Without further ado, let's get into the video. 24-year-old Samia Hakiki was last seen around 2:30 p.m. on November 12, 1999, when she left her final class on campus. She was planning to spend the weekend at her family's home on 159th Street in the Flushing area of the New York City borough of Queens. Hakiki never arrived as scheduled, and she has never been heard from again. Her parents said that she'd call them every day and usually spent weekends at their house. Authorities believe that Hakiki planned to tell her then boyfriend, Fahid John Popol, that she did not want to marry him. Investigators think that Hakiki's boyfriend learned about her rekindling her relationship with her previous boyfriend prior to November 12th and was upset by the news. Hakiki's black 1997 Volkswagen Jetta convertible was discovered abandoned in the Grand Union supermarket parking lot on Northern Boulevard and Marathon Parkway in the Little Neck section of Queens on November 14, 1999, just 2 days after her disappearance. There was no sign of a struggle at the scene, and the car was locked. Authorities found a gold necklace Hakiki normally wore inside the vehicle. The necklace had been given to her by her boyfriend. Hakiki's mother said that her daughter's car was parked less than 1 block away from Fahid's residence. Her family filed a missing persons report with law enforcement the day her vehicle was discovered. Investigators announced that they had considered Fahid the prime suspect in her disappearance in 2000, more than 1 year after Hakiki was last seen. A witness claimed that a man carried a rolled-up carpet into the Long Island automobile repair shop, where Fahid and his brother, Farhad Popol, were employed. Authorities searched the premises and discovered maggots under her hydraulic lift. The insects were tested for evidence of Hakiki's DNA, in case her blood was near the lift. The results came back inconclusive. A singed clump of hair was discovered in the shop sometime after 1999, with DNA testing proving that the hair belonged to Hakiki. With this DNA evidence, investigators suggested that the hair had been violently ripped from her head. Fahid had since relocated to Fremont, California, where he was arrested in August of 2002 and charged with Hakiki's murder. Farhad had also relocated and moved to Ontario, Canada, and became a naturalized Canadian citizen. He was charged with hindering prosecution and a presumed homicide. Authorities believe that Fahid killed Hakiki after learning of her refusal to marry him. Then he and his brother disposed of her remains by burning them with an acetylene torch. Fahid was convicted of murder in April of 2006 and sentenced to 26 years to life in prison. In May of 2006, Farhad pleaded no contest to 1 count of hindering prosecution. As part of the deal, he served no jail time and was instead required to return to Canada and not to re-enter the United States for at least 3 years. Hakiki is a graduate of Newtown High School and St. John's University, where she majored in paralegal studies and made the dean's list. Samia Hakiki's description is that of a 5'5" to 5'6" Asian woman, with dark hair and hazel eyes. She is a native of Afghanistan and goes by the nickname of Sammy. She was 24 at the time of her disappearance and would be 48 now if she was found. If you have any information in regards to the case, please contact the New York Police Department at 646-610-6914. Unfortunately, Samia Hakiki's body has never been located. 6-year-old Kaylah Hunter disappeared with her half-brother, 7-month-old Kristian Justice, and their mother Alicia Marie Fox, from Detroit, Michigan on May 24, 2014. They had been living with Alicia's husband of 4 months, Aaron Maurice Justice, who is Kristian's father, in the 1800 block of Ardmore Street. Alicia and the children had moved out shortly before they vanished. Kaylah's father got a text message supposedly from Alicia on June 3rd, but authorities don't believe she actually sent it. The three of them were reported missing by family members nearly 2 weeks later, on June 6th, after Kaylah missed her kindergarten graduation. On June 9th, Alicia's badly decomposed body was found wrapped in a blanket and dumped in the basement of a vacant house on Penrod Street on the west side of Detroit. She had been shot twice in the head. The house is only 3 doors down from where Aaron's cousin lives. There was no sign of either children, and they had never been seen again. Aaron was arrested in Atlanta, Georgia, and charged with first-degree murder in Alicia's case on June 11th. Authorities determined he rented a U-Haul after Alicia's murder and drove it 300 miles between May 27th and May 29th without ever leaving Detroit before he took a plane flight to Atlanta. He also sold Fox's Chevy Impala to a junkyard in Taylor, Michigan. By the time police tracked it down, it had already been stripped. Aaron has a history of violence towards women and a criminal record for drugs and weapon offenses. On June 2nd, several days after Alicia and the children disappeared, he appeared in court and pleaded guilty to several traffic violations. Timothy Bernard Jones was also charged with evidence tampering, concealing a death, and being an accessory to a murder. Authorities believe Aaron killed Alicia inside her Ardmore Street residence sometime between May 25th and May 27th. They found a bullet hole lodged in the wall and blood splatter on the ceiling of the upstairs bedroom. Jones, who was Aaron's friend from childhood, allegedly helped him hide the body. He told the police that the body was originally stored in a crawl space in the Ardmore Street house, and at the time he helped move it, the children were alive. The family's white pit bull was found running loose on West End and Vanderbilt in Detroit on June 19th. It had strangulation marks around its neck and cigarette burns on its face and chest. It was picked up by Southwest Animal Group, given veterinary treatment, and placed in a foster home, and was eventually identified as Alicia's dog. It was speculated that Aaron sold it to be bred or to be used for fighting. The animal had reportedly been very loyal and protective of the children. Aaron reached a plea deal with the prosecution in September of 2015, pleading guilty to second-degree murder and a felony weapons charge, where he was sentenced to 45 to 80 years in prison. Kaylah Hunter's description is that of a 4'5" African-American female, with dark hair and brown eyes. She might have her hair in cornrows. She was 6 at the time of her disappearance, and would be 15 now as she was found. Kristian Justice's description is that of a 2-foot African-American male, with dark hair and brown eyes. He was 7 months old when he went missing, and would be 9 now if he was found. If you have any information in regards to the case, please contact the Detroit Police Department at 313-596-5600. Kaylah and Kristian are considered to be in grave danger due to the circumstances involved. It's possible they're somewhere in the Atlanta area where Aaron was arrested. Unfortunately, Kaylah and Kristian's whereabouts have yet to be found. 18-year-old Letitia Frazier was last seen in Washington, D.C. on August 2, 2010, after leaving work. She has never been heard from again. About 5 months following Frazier's disappearance, someone anonymously posted threatening messages on her Facebook page, claiming she had been murdered, and her body was disposed of in Rock Creek Park. Investigators believe Frazier was killed at the 1700 block of Trenton Place Southeast on the day of her disappearance. They found a stain resembling blood in the back bedroom, on the carpet, and the flooring underneath. A total of 6 suspects have been charged in her presumed homicide. Brian A. Gather, Johnny A. Sweet, Anika Nelson, Cynthia Proctor, Lawrence Kamal Hassan, and Lainey Bell. All the defendants except Hassan and Gathier were in the teens at the time of the homicide. Proctor was 18, Bell and Sweet were 17, and Nelson was 16. Authorities believe Frazier was lured to the murder site and beaten and choked to death, and her body was partially dismembered and thrown into a dumpster. Bell, Hassan, Proctor, Nelson, and Gathier ultimately pleaded guilty to their respective roles in Frazier's murder. They said they believed Frazier had stolen $900 from Sweet, and they decided to beat her up to teach her a lesson. but they never intended for Frazier to die. Sweet pleaded not guilty and was tried in April of 2013. He was convicted and sentenced to 52 years in prison. Gathier, who had been sentenced to 32 years in prison, successfully appealed his guilty verdict and got the right to a new trial. In April of 2017, he pleaded guilty again and was sentenced to 32 years again, but under a different statute, which gives him time off for good behavior. Frazier left behind a 3-year-old daughter. Her mother described her as a responsible, hard-working teen who was never out of touch with her family. She had graduated from Crossland High School and worked full-time at a McDonald's restaurant in Oxon Hill, Maryland, and was thinking about enrolling in college. She didn't appear to have any problems in her life. Letitia Frazier's description is that of a 5'3" African-American woman with dark hair and brown eyes. She has the name Diamond tattooed on her upper right arm and has eczema on her arms and legs. She usually wears glasses. She was 18 at the time of her disappearance and would be 31 now if she was found. If you have any information in regards to the case, please contact the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department at 202-727-9099. Authorities believe that Frazier's body is in a Virginia landfill, but they haven't attempted to search for it because of the costs and time involved and because of the low chances of success. Foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved. Letitia Frazier's body and whereabouts have yet to be found. 49-year-old Carla Mae Burns was last seen in Harrisburg, Illinois at 3:30 p.m. on March 8, 2016. She has never been heard from again. Less than 2 weeks later, her estranged husband, Brian Burns, was charged with her murder. Investigators believe he shot her to death, burned her body, and spread the ashes. Carla was a nursing instructor at Southeastern Illinois College and lived in Marion, Illinois. Brian was a doctor and lived in Harrisburg. They married in 2009, but were in the process of divorce. Carla had filed the divorce in 2014, citing irreconcilable differences. She later filed multiple petitions for temporary relief and restraining orders. She claimed that Brian was verbally abusive towards her, and she feared he would turn violent. She also stated he had taken $63,058, both of their life savings, from their joint bank accounts. Brian in turn accused Carla of economic blackmail and verbal harassment, and claimed she had stolen 2 handguns and various documents from him, including his passport. In September of 2016, he was additionally charged with solicitation, aggravated kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit aggravated kidnapping, after he had allegedly offered to pay an undercover police officer $1,000 to kidnap Mike Henshaw, the prosecutor in his murder case. In 2018, he was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison for that crime. 8 days after Carla went missing, Brian told police that she had died in a tragic accident when she shot herself between the eyes with his 9mm pistol, and that he burned her body and scattered ashes on the property. He claimed he had not remembered her death until then because of the emotional trauma. Brian maintained this story at his trial in December of 2019. The prosecution argued Brian had planned Carla's death several days in advance. He was convicted of murder and concealment of a homicidal death in Carla's disappearance. Carla left behind 2 sons who live in Texas. She planned on returning to live in Texas after finishing out the semester at Southeastern Illinois College. Carla Mae Burns' description is that of a 5'4" Caucasian woman with brown hair and brown eyes. She was 49 at the time of her disappearance and would be 56 now if she was found. If you have any information in regards to the case, please contact the Saline County Coroner's Office at 618-252-6402. Carla Burns' remains have never been located, but foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved. 35-year-old Kristian Gibson was last seen in Austin, Texas, with 35-year-old Sydney Taylor. They had been friends since they attended Aldine High School together, but weren't romantically involved. They drove to Austin on April 1st for the Urban Music Festival and were at the Landing Strip Club late that night. They were with a friend, Harvey Hootie Cyphers, and surveillance cameras showed the three of them entering the club together, and then leaving it together at closing time, at 2 a.m. on April 2nd. The friend whom Taylor and Gibson was staying with spoke to Taylor on the phone at 3 a.m., and Taylor said that he was with Cyphers. Taylor and Gibson never arrived back at their friend's residence, and were never heard from again. 2 days later, Taylor's 2010 Dodge Charger with the Texas license plate number CBJ 6089 was found abandoned in the 2400 block of Millam in downtown Houston, Texas, more than 160 miles from where the pair was last seen. Some of Gibson's personal belongings, including her purse, were inside the car. There was a pool of blood on the rear passenger side floorboard, and plastic sheeting in the trunk was covered with dried blood and hair. Police found inconsistencies in Cypher's story about the events of that night. They searched his home in the 6800 block of Montana in Austin and found blood there. They think a violent crime occurred and someone made attempts to clean up. The search also uncovered an April 3rd receipt with a list of suspicious items purchased from a Walmart store. Police determined through cell phone records that Cyphers, Gibson, and Taylor were all at his home at 3 a.m. on April 2nd. At 7:30 a.m., the three phones left Austin together and traveled to Houston. Cypher's phone was used to make multiple calls to Megabus, within walking distance of where Taylor's car was found. Starting at 5 p.m., Cypher's phone traveled without Gibson and Taylor's phones along the same route Megabus takes, between Houston and Austin. In July of that year, Cyphers pleaded guilty to being a felon in possession of firearms and was sent to prison. He has prior convictions for possession of a controlled substance in 1998 and an unlawful possession of a firearm in 2001. In March of 2019, Cyphers was charged with tampering with evidence with intent to impair a human corpse, blood, biological material, a motor vehicle, a cell phone, text messages, a bath mat, a shower liner, shower curtains, and bath towels that he altered, destroyed or concealed other evidence knowing that an investigation was pending and in progress, and that he tampered with 2 corpses after murder or an assault offense had been committed. 18 months later, in September of 2020, Cyphers was additionally charged with Gibson and Taylor's murders. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. He is awaiting trial. Kristian Gibson's description is that of a 5'3" African-American woman with brown hair and brown eyes. Gibson has tattoos, one of the cartoon character Betty Boop on the outside of her left leg, the word 1 on her upper left thigh, and a butterfly on her left foot. She was 35 at the time of her disappearance and would be 41 now if she was found. Sidney Taylor's description is that of a 5'10" African-American man with dark hair and brown eyes. Taylor had a thin mustache at the time of his disappearance. He has the tattoos of his last name Taylor on his back, the phrase R.I.P. Georgia Lee and Edward on his chest, the phrase Lord forgive me on his forearm, and another tattoo of the phrase marry the one who gives me space. He was 35 at the time of his disappearance, and would be 41 now if he was found. If you have any information in regards to the case, please contact the Austin Police Department at 512-974-5250. It's uncharacteristic of either her or Taylor to leave without warning or abandoning their families. Foul play is suspected in their cases due to the circumstances involved. Unfortunately, Gibson and Taylor's bodies have yet to be located. 45-year-old Fauna Frey was last seen at the Umpqua Bank in Rogue River, Oregon on June 29, 2020. She had decided to take a trip as a way to cope with her brother's unexpected death, and mentioned to her father that she had picked up a hitchhiker. She last had contact with her family on July 1st. She may have been camping near Brookings, Oregon, or in Josephine County, Oregon. In the days prior to her disappearance, Frey used her credit card twice to purchase camping equipment and personal items. She also used her credit card to reserve a room at the Wisku Inn in Grants Pass, Oregon, but she never showed up to claim her reservation. After she booked the room, her credit card was never used again. She was reported missing on July 5th. Her vehicle, a blue 2000 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, with 2 or 3 parking stickers on the windshield, and the Oregon license plate number 339EYB, disappeared with her On September 23rd, almost 3 months later, the car was found on a dead-end spur off Reuben Mountain Road, a mining road about 6 miles past the Grave Creek boat landing in Josephine County. It was locked, and some of her belongings, including her food she purchased, were inside it. It appeared to have been parked there for a month or longer. An extensive search turned up with no indication of Frey's whereabouts. Police have questioned the hitchhiker she picked up, and the person isn't a suspect in her case. Frey left her laptop and cell phone behind, but her father stated she often didn't use her phone and would use a burner phone to keep in touch with people. Since Frey was last seen, her bank account has not been accessed. Fauna Frey's description is that of a 5'6" Caucasian woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. Fauna also wears glasses mainly at night. If you have any information in regards to the case, please contact the Josephine County Sheriff's Office at 541-474-5123. It's a sad and cruel world, and I want to express my sincere condolences to the people who tragically lost their lives to these monsters. I hope that the family and friends of these people are able to receive the closure that they are seeking. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.